Hey, everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 249. That's 249. That's almost 250 episodes, you guys.
We can go into syndication soon.
I was just going to say...
It feels like we've been doing this forever.
Ow. Oh, yeah, it does. It does a little bit. 249 good episodes, though. That's for October 18th, 2017.
And 3 ugly ones.
And 3... Oh, is that? No,
it's a strip bar in Seattle.
I thought that sounded vaguely familiar, and I was like, I'm not going to recognize that. Oh, yes.
They had a sign. Sorry, they had a sign that said 99 beautiful girls and 3 ugly ones.
And 3 ugly ones. How nice!
Wow,
that is
pleasant.
Yes, I didn't come up with that.
No. Don't blame Paul for that, please. Thank you very much. My name is Russell Frost. I am very glad to be your host tonight, and with me tonight, 3 of my favorite panelists. Let's introduce them and get this show on the road. The man helping me with the strip club taglines is the founder and operator, main technician, our technical expert, and man about town, Mr. Paul Guzik.
Hey guys, glad to be back. I was away for a couple weeks, but back in the saddle here. So,
and I'll do it after this one. Then the next one, the guy in the red sweatshirt there. It must be cold at his house. It's like 90 degrees here today. I can't imagine what the difference is. His name is Mark Coughlin.
That would be geography.
Oh!
That would be the difference. Yes, indeed.
You're up north. I'm down south.
And they don't have heat in Canada.
No, we don't have heat.
No.
The igloo temperature is turned way down low. Yes.
So to my 2 Canadian friends, we lost, I mean, not just Canadian, but we lost a musical legend today.
We certainly did. Mr. Gordon Downey of the Tragically Hip passed away this morning.
Yeah, and while it was expected, it's still awful, especially someone so young and so talented, and it's just awful in any circumstance. So cheers to you Tragically Hip fans out there today. And yeah, that's it. So let's introduce Tony.
I have to follow that.
The guy in the middle after the death announcement is my friend in Illinois, Mr. Tony Schaefer.
You seriously?
I know, really.
It's not like he made it any better.
That is the intro I've ever given you. 249 shows, and I could have just slapped you, and it would have been better.
Gee, thanks.
Smack. There's Tony Schaefer for you.
Yes. So, hi everybody. I am I got another window open, just kind of keeping my eye on the Chicago Cubs' last game of 2017.
Last suspected game.
Yeah, I'm not feeling very confident about this. I think they're about to be knocked out of the NL National League Championship Series tonight.
And who's beating them?
I don't know. Some scummy California team. It's LA.
What kind of team? Oh, the Dodgers? Yeah.
Yeah. They've got a good team, so I can't.
Bye, baby. Good for them.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have more fun things to talk about than sports, and God knows there are a few sports shows that talk about sports. I don't really want to talk about it. The first feature, generally, because I get to schedule the show, so of course I take the first spot. Patrick has lovingly called Russell's Rant, and today I not only want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, but I want to talk about one of my least favorite websites, which is The Verge. If you see it on The Verge, you can guarantee that it's on The Verge. And anything more than that, I'm not going to guarantee. Andrew J. Hawkins last week on The Verge published a story, the title of which is, and I quote, "Self-driving cars are on a collision course with our crappy cities." The whole point of this article is honestly so ass backwards and stupid that I have a hard time even really taking it seriously. But let me sum it up to you. If you haven't already derived the thesis from the title, it's basically that were it not for our crappy infrastructure and horrible roads and cities, we would already have self-driving jets and flying taxis that would know exactly where we wanted to go before we even summoned them. And if you believe that, you should keep reading at The Verge because it's the perfect site for you.
I've got a bridge I can sell you in Brooklyn too.
Yeah, this is so damn stupid. And the only thing that is better than me kind of calling this out was, by the way, if our friend Alex Roy, who writes at The Drive, did a beautiful takedown of two VCs that wrote a story about self-driving cars, which is kind of the same, just like lots of platitudes and empty stuff. Alex's takedown was epic. I will post it on the Facebook page. That's facebook.com/whatdrivesus. And you definitely need to read it because Alex did a nice job. Back to The Verge and Mr. Hawkins. It just, again, we've talked about self-driving cars and autonomy and where we're at and where people think we're going to be. The problem is there's a lot of companies that want to make a lot of money getting other people to pay for things that will make their distant technology more possible. And what we're talking about here is infrastructure. One of the things that self-driving cars are going to need is more consistent infrastructure, more consistent roads. They have trouble sometimes in special conditions that humans sort out. And one of the ways to make self-driving cars work is to make self-driving car roads. And if that sounds stupid, it's because it is stupid. Self-driving cars aren't the answer. They're a problem. I don't want to confuse that with the safety features that autonomy research and people reaching for autonomy are bringing to cars. That's super important and amazing and wonderful. But chasing this phantasm of fully autonomous vehicles is a bad thing in my opinion. So I'm going to shut up now and let somebody else talk. And the whole panel said nothing.
Yeah. You know, I do think there are a few things, and I've said this before. I'm not taking it so far as there needs to be autonomous vehicle roads and entire, city centers need to be restructured and rebuilt and dug up and all that crap. But I have said before that one thing that would really help with autonomous vehicles and whatever is if there was consistent striping. And that's not just in cities, but outside cities where you're driving along and yeah, we, the people, humans, do a decent enough job discerning the blacktop versus the road, versus dirt. But it would be nice if somebody actually painted the road with a white stripe on the side and yellow down the middle so that the autonomous vehicle knew which lane it was supposed to be in. That kind of stuff I agree with. But yeah, to the extent at which this, the extent to which this article goes to the reconfiguration of our city downtowns just to benefit autonomous vehicles is a too hyperbolic.
And will never happen.
Exactly.
There's no way we're going to pay for two road infrastructures, one for autonomous, one for regular. There's not enough money to keep one of them paved, let alone two sets. So yeah, I really love how the animals are paying the brunt.
I'm sorry. Okay.
It really makes zero sense that there's ever going to be two separate infrastructures. We have difficult, as I said, with one.
I think it's arguable. Why do we even want that? And I think that's kind of where I'm going to a point, which is, again, autonomy solves what problem? Okay, safety, but can we be safer? Yeah, we can get to safety really easily by making sure that cars have the existing features that don't require changes in infrastructure. And guess what? By expanding public transit where people aren't driving. We want to get cars off the road. We want to make the roads safer. We want to open them up. There are, within our grasp, other technologies we can pursue.
Yeah, but keep in mind, probably where autonomy is being pushed for, I would argue the most is going to be in transportation vehicles like trucks.
Right.
That's where money is going to be saved. That's where they're going to eliminate a wage.
Transit vehicles that go on a fixed route.
Right.
Right.
So there's certainly plays that well, in California, for example, when they started talking about autonomy a number of years ago, there were a number of highways that they blocked out one of the lanes, and they used it for testing. It was behind a concrete barrier, running in the same roadway that everyone else used. It's just that they were kind of blocked off by themselves.
Right.
But again, that's just not practical as we move forward.
I mean, I think
the technology will move fast enough. They'll figure out how to make it work on existing infrastructure. Yeah. It won't work 100%, but it will work probably more reliably than the humans behind the cars that are driving around today.
Ouch, that's insane. But one of the things that Alex argues in his article about autonomy is that money better spent on infrastructure or on autonomy development or on driver education?
No, people will be stupid.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
I don't know that that's a slam dunk point, but I do. Again, we're not even asking these questions. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
How much money can we give you? Self-driving car.
But I mean, they could legislate. I think they might be, auto stopping, automatic braking, stuff like that, mandatory in all cars. Just like
like they've done with progressive things like cameras and whatever else.
Yeah.
That they say that these things are now required, and certainly.
I mean, going back 20, 30 years, just the third brake light. Look how much that saved collisions, and then they invented the smartphone, and that.
And then canceled those out.
But
right.
A little bit of technology goes a long way.
One step forward, 2.5 back.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But even to Russell and Alex's points, between the four of us, how many of us actually learned how to drive a car in high school? And I don't just mean while we were in high school. I mean literally in high school, like as a class.
Right. Right.
Okay. So Russell did. I did.
I just drove with my folks. Yeah.
Wow. Paul just figured it out. Do you have a license yet, or do you still just drive?
No, I never got it.
Okay.
You just outed him.
Yeah.
Whereas, like in Europe, you have to take 100 hours of driver ed, and you have to learn how to drive a stick shift, even if your car is an automatic. And it's really hard to get a license in most European countries. Where here, if you can answer 10 questions and pass an eye exam, they give you a license pretty much.
Exactly. And that's my point. I personally had to pass an entire semester high school class of driver's ed. We had simulators. We had a parking lot that was painted out. We had to drive around. We had to practice parallel parking. We had to back into spaces. We had to do all these things. And then we had ride-alongs with instructors, and we had to go out on the streets, and they told us where to go. And it was an entire semester class.
And was that a credit course for high school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and then you're right. Now it's you call up a company, I guess, you drive around. I don't even know what it is, but I know that it's not as intensive as what many of us in our generation had to do.
I don't want to make it like there's damn kids today, because you know what? There's a lot of drivers, Tony, our age and older, that have business being on the road.
Oh yeah, and I'm not saying
especially the older ones.
Yeah. Well, and maybe me. I mean, have you seen my car reviews?
They're available on What Drives Us.
Yeah, they are indeed. YouTube.com/What Drives Us. It's right down there.
Here it is.
Anyway, I don't want to beat this up, but I thought it was an interesting thing, and I love to rant, so it was my thing. Again, we don't. This isn't like a zero-sum game. We have money. We are a productive nation, and we determine how we're going to spend it. We're either going to spend it buying more expensive cars, buying cars with these features. We're going to spend it in improving infrastructure so these vehicles work properly, or we can do other things with it that may also address the problem, or we can do a combination of those things. We don't just have to follow one rabbit.
Right.
That's all.
I vote we go to Mars.
Oh God, I'm gonna hit you. I'm so gonna hit you. Just
in a hyperloop.
Oh God.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Well,
Powered by a Powerwall.
Oh, we're off the rails now. There's no coming back.
yeah. Speaking of Tesla and being off the rails, I don't know if those of you watching the show or even the panel are familiar with Jean-Louis Gasset. Does that name mean anything to you? And
No.
Wasn't he an Apple guy back in the day?
Yeah, he was back in the day. Not an especially amazing CEO, but since he's left, he's written article after article of just really, really good insight. Very, very smart person. And there's an article, let's see, in it's a Monday Note, and it's entitled Tesla's New Car Smell. And I'm tempted to read the whole article, but I'm not going to do that. What it is, though, is a critique of what's going on with Tesla and some of his, and this is a person who's done mass production, who's run a company that does mass production, not of motor vehicles, certainly, but of another complicated product. So he's a little familiar with this kind of thing. And talking about how scary some of and what it could portend is potentially not good for Tesla. And I think that's really, really a fair comment to make, because it's Tesla's lack of transparency here that is giving us the freedom to go, what the fuck is going on in Fremont? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What are we up to? VIN number 326?
454 or something like that.
Is it up over 450 already?
Yeah.
Wow. So they've kicked it into high gear. And I say that somewhat sarcastically, but
yeah, when they ship 1,500 or 2,500 Model X's last month, and that's up month over month or whatever, and they're not being invisible or transparent, we say, oh well, that's just what they do. But when they said they would have 1,500 vehicles and they shipped 263, you're right. It's like, well, you're not being transparent, so tell us what's going on. And then it becomes a thing of, well, no matter what Elon says, we have to believe it because it's all we got.
That's the scariest part for me, is that sort of Tesla echo chamber where anybody who says, hey, so what's up with this body plant in Detroit shipping you body pads?
Did Russell just freeze?
Yep.
He is frozen.
Froze?
Oh, he's back. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm back. Yay! Because I never. So I don't know where it left off, but again, it is Tesla's lack of transparency that makes this difficult, and that sort of, I hate to say it, that sort of cult of Tesla that says that they can do no wrong, and that's not healthy for Tesla or us.
Well, this gentleman came from Apple, and isn't that exactly what Apple was as well? Is they were secretive, they kept things to themselves. He knows that culture because he was in it.
Yes, absolutely. He was in it during an especially bad time when they were licensing the product. I mean, Apple, when he was running it, Apple was almost at its lowest ebb. Again, I don't know that was his fault, but I just look at his experience and what he's talked about since then. He seems to be a very smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, the way the article is written, the mention of the optimists and the way he looks to their stock and says the stock was actually on a 10-point slide, and then Elon comes out and says, well, we missed our target, but don't worry, everything's fine. And then the slide stops and the stock starts going up. And, and so Jean-Louis saying, well, the optimists are holding everything up for the promise of things to come.
Right.
But now he's looking at it and he says, well, the optimists might be wrong this time because there are some serious doubts as to what's what's coming up. You know, did you guys see this about the guy? Wait, it wasn't John Louise, was it? Who was touring the Fremont factory back in July 2016. And the story he tells here is there were so many, you know, quote unquote, the sins against the Toyota Bible.
Right.
The Machine That Changed the World, a great and sad book. And, you know, the just-in-time inventory and how if there's a problem, then you don't have stockpiles of parts. And that was one thing he noticed in Fremont, was that there were literally stockpiles of parts on the floor. And they and that just flies in the face of how a machine, you know, a smooth operation is being done. And then he goes on to say that the line, as he watched it, was hiccuping. Workers were dashing to fix faulty parts in place, and even to the point of timing how quickly they can get a car out. And he was saying that, I think it was BMW gets a car out every 1 minute, and most manufacturers try to get a car out every 2 minutes. But when you look at the Tesla, it comes down to 5.5 minutes.
Yeah. And
they are never going to they're never going to achieve 100,000 cars or even 15,000 or whatever if they keep a 5.5 minute car cycle.
Keep in mind, this July 2016 visit was by Gasset himself. There, given a tour as he was picking up a Model S for his wife. These are his personal observations, not secondhand stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
It's hard to build a car factory.
It is really,
It really is.
Absolutely. And I don't think, you know, again, doing business in 2017 in this country, in this world is, you know, you can't always come out and be the open, transparent kind of company that would benefit the customer. But I think there's some sort of median. There's some sort of, you know, like, wouldn't it be nice if Tesla was different? I think the other thing that he rightly points out is that the people, while Elon's, and he says funny, while Elon's run the table with the S and the X at the high end, the threat, as he calls it, is the Mary and Carlos threat. And that's Mary Barra and Carlos Ghosn of, respectively, GM and Nissan, who already have an entry-level EV on the market.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you have to wonder, if you have 400,000 people, if you're number 300,000 or above, are you really going to get your car in 3 years?
And that's why they don't give you a number.
Right.
And what else will be out in 3 years from other manufacturers?
Right.
Right. Exactly.
Everybody's
And yeah,
trying to catch up and working hard at it. And some companies have deep pockets for engineering.
Well, and the risk that Tesla's running here is something we've talked about with Toyota and their lack of EV development and their lack of even Prius development before the Prime. Was just that other companies are jumping ahead of them. So people aren't going to necessarily be, while they were all hot to trot a year and a half ago, a year ago, to put a deposit down on a Model 3, in 2 years, that deposit's going to look a lot less attractive.
Yeah.
And a lot more refundable if you don't.
right.
Well, and especially if Tesla delivers some bad quality control issues.
And that's why they got to get this right. They cannot release something that they're rushing out the door. It's got to be right when it goes out.
Yeah.
Or pretty darn close to right.
And if you're doing modifications on the line, that makes recall and fixes a lot harder.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they are living, as Elon has already mentioned, in production hell, and they've got to get through it.
And all the manufacturers have quality issues too, and most of them have been working for decades to figure out how to do it, but they still screw up.
Oh, you still see the occasional truck recall for a tailgate.
Oh yeah.
It's like, seriously, it's a tailgate. You've been making those for literally 100 years. Yeah, and like stuff goes wrong.
My Toyota parts guy said on the RAV Toyota, not the hybrid, the regular RAV, there was a few years where all the hatchbacks broke because they used, Chinese steel or something. And they are going around replacing everybody's hatchback now that bought a RAV from that generation. And the local body shops are doing like 5 a month, and Toyota's backed up for many weeks. And they have to make it right because it doesn't stay on. And you can imagine the costs involved in rehabbing all of those cars that are out there, tens of thousands of cars.
Yeah. And now if you were already shaky about the technology, I mean, that's a internal combustion engine and a hatchback. Now imagine you were an early adopter on this new electric vehicle and something's going wrong, and now I spent $35,000 on this. Yeah, it's an interesting article. It's an interesting perspective. We do tend to, we'll give Tesla some crap from time to time, but I think we all sort of see where Elon is trying to go, and we applaud that. But still, it's a good article in that it gives you some pause and says, wait a minute, you might want to check your enthusiasm.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Tony, I bet you have something.
Yeah, well, speaking of, new up and coming and enthusiasm, I found an article in the Straits Times.
You win for best source of the week.
Yes, I know. Which it turns out is actually a Singapore. It comes out of Singapore, and the article was written by Go In Yao. I'm guessing that's my best guess. But really, so the point is, it says electric cars, look out for the Kodak moment. And he starts with a really
Did you say Coda moment?
Watch out for the Coda moment, exactly.
We've already been there.
Yeah, he starts with a really interesting comparison, and what he starts with is the Apple iPhone. Now, you would think, and you would be correct to say that the iPhone killed the flip phone. Okay, that's correct, and everybody sees that, and that's obvious. But what you fail to consider is that the iPhone killed Kodak. I'll let that sink in, because Eastman Kodak filed bankruptcy in 2012, less than 5 years after the iPhone was launched. So now you can say that was a coincidence, but you had more people carrying around cameras in their phone and storing and swapping pictures digitally, and less people in printed pictures. So what he is talking about here is not just are electric vehicles going to kill internal combustion engines, but what's the side thing that you might not be looking for? And this is more, it's written from an investment perspective. And so he goes into the lithium battery and talks about, look for the suppliers and, of all the parts, and compares the electric vehicle and Kodak to things like spark plugs and Mopar and all the companies that made all their money by selling components to fix the internal combustion engines or to keep the internal combustion engines going. And it's essentially, it's a question of what are these companies going to do, because they now have nothing to sell, for example, a Tesla owner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting that you don't necessarily think of that when you're thinking about EVs. Is that what you're saying? There may be an end to the internal combustion vehicle, but your mind doesn't directly go to the part suppliers of those vehicles.
Someone just selling many engine air filters to.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was a recent post on our Twitter feed of someone putting up a picture of their brake pads from their EV, and like this is a 2012 EV, and the brake pads are still new.
Right.
So how many brake jobs are going to be performed on EVs once they become prevalent? And what are those brake manufacturers going to do when they're selling, 80%, 75% less brakes?
Hopefully they'll sell tires, because EVs do go through tires.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think, Paul, was it you that had said that there's 5 replaceable parts on an electric vehicle, and it's like 4 tires and a wiper or something
More than
like
that,
that.
but
Yeah.
compared to a gas car, yeah,
Yeah.
very little.
But he does go on in the article to talk about where to look. Again, this is an investment perspective piece. Where to look for investments, and he does talk about Tesla, of course, in the United States, but then also something that people here in the United States don't think about is the Zhejiang Geely company. Does everyone want to take a guess?
I never think about that company.
I know, but I bet.
But we don't live in China.
But you kind of do, because the Zhejiang Geely is the owner of Volvo. And their price has more than tripled in the last 12 months.
Wow.
And what company said that every new car is going to be a hybrid or an EV?
Volvo.
Ta-da!
And for Zhejiang Geely to sell cars in the rest of the world, it's going to be a lot easier with a Volvo badge on it than Zhejiang Geely on this car.
Exactly. But they're a Chinese company. And what country is the biggest EV market in the world right now?
The biggest auto market, period.
Yeah, well, exactly. So again, this is just from an investment perspective, but he's really taking these pieces from around the world, and he's doing it from a perspective that's not the standard American, inward facing mirror perspective. And he's looking at all the pieces around the world, and he's saying, keep an eye on this and keep an eye on this. And I thought it was a really interesting article. And unfortunately, the second half of the article starts going off the rail, because he just starts throwing in things like, oh, and don't forget autonomous cars. Well, that was kind of out of left field. But I just thought it was an interesting article that from the Straits Times in Singapore, of all places. Yeah.
Nice. Well, speaking of marketing in Asia, Toyota announced last week that let me ask you to start this way. Do you guys have any idea how many different models of cars Toyota has in Japan?
17?
4,050.
A shit ton.
I'm going to say 24.
The answer is 60.
Wow.
Shocks me. But apparently the market has, up until now at least, supported that kind of diversity, and that allows Toyota to grab a bigger market share by offering things that diverse Japanese auto buyers want. Toyota has announced, however, though, that they're going to cut that in half.
Now, wait, are you sure it's only 60? Because the first sentence says they're aiming to halve the number of car models by 2025. So that means they currently have 4,050.
Oh, you grammar people.
Oh, yes. Boom, 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 boom.
The grammar police.
No, it's not so well written. Hey, it's Reuters. You wouldn't expect them to be good at writing. Anyway, yes. So, yeah. I just thought it was interesting. I mean, obviously Toyota, that's their home, that's their strong. I mean, that's where they live, and the idea that they would be doing that is, that's a. I mean, if they said in the United States we're going to cut the number of models that we sell here in half, I mean that's huge. Now, if we got,
they've kind of done some pruning. I mean, they got rid of Scion.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I guess the Prius V is on the chopping block.
It is massive, though. Like, you think about the North American brands, 60. That is
a
big number.
Yeah.
And then, like they said, cutting it in half to 30 is still more than the total number of models sold in the United States.
Right. And again, think of the relative populations. You know what I mean? Now, I don't know if this includes all of Asia, or if this is just Japan. Again, the way the article's written, the implication is that it's just Japan. But it does.
There's an interesting paragraph in the article about Honda is closing a factory in Japan, cutting output by 24% domestically to focus on EVs and other technologies.
Mhm.
What other technologies, we wonder?
Hydrogen,
Yeah, I just can't even imagine what Honda's got.
diesel.
Please, Honda, don't screw up.
Well, see, I thought you were going to point out the sentence here that says car sales in Japan have been declining for more than 2 decades as population rapidly ages and young people are losing interest in car ownership.
Right.
Okay, so how are they getting people to lose interest in car ownership, and why don't we over here focus on that?
Oh, they are.
Or is it like we see here in North America that the
Kids don't
reason
wanna
that
drive.
the reason that people aren't getting their licenses and getting cars, it's related to economics. That there's a big price to pay to have a car, and kids are like, well, do I have my iPhone every year or do I get a car?
Right.
And
As if it's even that simple of a calculus.
yeah, like it's the combination of living and the cost of everything and wages not necessarily going up to catch up. And you've got people that are making choices to say, you know what, I could do without a car. Yeah, I'd rather have the other things.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So I wonder if that's the same thing in Japan.
so, back in the day, I worked in the music business, and the scary thing about that is when Napster came out, it changed a lot of things. A lot of kids changed the way they got music. They were file sharing and trading. And the problem was the music business as a business didn't get on that, didn't address it for a very long time. They pissed around. And what they did was they trained an entire generation that music had no value,
Right.
Yeah.
no reason to buy it. And they fought back tooth and nail just to get to where they are now to sell downloads. But you can't not look at that example and go, oh my God, that could happen to us. And it could.
Yep, it's an interesting paradigm we live in as to what is going to happen with car sales and what will happen to the average household that has over 2 cars now. Like what is going to happen to it? We don't know.
Well, and also it's a totally different culture. Japan is much more dense, much more public transit. Back in the day, people hated transit because it was so boring. But now, if you're sitting on the bus playing with your phone, who cares? You're
You're watching your movie, you're going to work,
playing Facebook, whatever, and sooner or later you're at work, and that's how the kids, even in American cities, are thinking now.
Yeah. Come on. It's not just the kids. I drive around. I see adults on Facebook while they're driving. I see adults on watching video, doing social media.
Yeah.
There are better things to do than pay attention to driving.
Yeah, that's the worst part of it.
No doubt about that. And this is the problem that the car companies face going forward is their product, the interest in their product is declining. And how do they reinvigorate the market? Maybe one answer is not selling to consumers anymore.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I love Twitter, and you can follow us on Twitter, by the way. At Twitter, we're at What Drives Us. Not me personally, What Drives Us. And one of my favorite follows on Twitter is an account called The Internet of Shit.
Of course it is.
Yeah, and it's like many things on Twitter. It's sort of a parody satire account of the internet of everything and how everything has to be connected to the internet, and with the problems that come up with this. And there was a tweet just yesterday that I have to. I guess maybe I should just put it up. Right, I can do that. I have the technology. So here's the tweet, and I'll read it to those of you listening. It says, and I quote, "I don't understand why Tesla thought requiring internet on a giant fucking battery glued to your wall was a good idea." And what they do is there's a screen capture from the Tesla website about Powerwall, and it says, "Can Powerwall work without internet?" ? And the answer is Powerwall needs internet. Wire Ethernet, and it goes on to say, there's features and all of that. And in other words, when you buy a Powerwall, it has to have net access or it doesn't work.
But when you lose power, you often will lose internet.
Yeah.
Jeez, that kind of defeats the purpose.
Right. Well, it does say that it can operate without internet.
Right.
For short periods is really what it says.
3.5 minutes.
3.5 minutes to pack everything up and empty your freezer.
Then it explodes. I mean, and I get there's good reasons, there's updates and all that kind of stuff, but in another sense, when we're talking about decentralizing the grid and using Powerwall to do this and doing these things, why the fuck are you going to tie it into something and make it mandatory that it's connected to the grid? Why can't it just, why can't you go out there with a flash drive and update it every month if you had to, right?
Well, as long as it will fundamentally function without a net connection, that's fine. But, if it's uploading reports and stuff to the cloud, I can understand that, but it shouldn't be crippled if it loses a net connection. It still should do what it's supposed to do. Power your house. If the grid goes down.
Some of the comments?
Yeah, I'm flipping through the comments, and some of them are very entertaining. One of them indicated that Tesla is constantly checking the expiration date of your electrons to see if any of them have expired.
There was another one that said, and I'll quote him, "You're going to put a bunch of highly explosive devices in homes. Do you A, monitor the shit out of them, or B, do something else?" Okay.
So in the middle of the night, a Tesla crew shows up outside your house because they've been monitoring your pack and there's something going on.
Yeah.
In those hazmat suits or something, right?
You come knocking on the door. We've noticed you've been
Too
off
many
for
electrons.
2.5 days.
Can you give us the key to the garage, or we're gonna have to cut it down because we've been monitoring it.
There's another wonderful comment that says, quote, "Oh, look, my house battery is mining Bitcoins."
Yeah.
That's a plus.
You're right. Yeah, there's some really interesting, of course, comments. And then what's funny is somebody will make a really stupid comment, and then somebody will reply to them being super serious. And you're like, oh, you're missing the point, dude.
The internet is a wonderful place.
Yes. Yeah.
But of course, now you've left the door open for hackers to get in and steal your battery or something.
Well,
Reroute your electrons.
right. I mean,
Yes.
Some Nigerian bank.
yeah. What hackers?
Yes.
Can they overheat the pack or something? I hate the paranoid stuff, but
I like that, Paul. Selling your electrons to Nigeria. That's great.
Yeah.
the only way to reroute the power.
Oh man.
See this little orange extension cord coming out of the power.
But it's interesting this article brought up because I was unaware that the Tesla battery pack required internet access.
I mean, I kind of expected anything Tesla does will be net connected, but
required is the question. Yeah.
it's like a Tesla car doesn't stop being drivable if your net connection is down, if you're in the middle of Wyoming or something.
Maybe it does. They've had good luck to this point.
Yeah.
Well, of course, with the Tesla cars, though, your internet comes with the car built in. You don't have to pay for it. You don't
have to use it.
You don't have to use it, but the car's using it all the time.
Right.
If the connection is there.
Tesla's using it all the time.
Tesla's using it all the time. You were
Except
absolutely
in the middle
correct.
of Wyoming.
Which is why you could go to Boulder Hybrids and buy a custom fitted Faraday cage for your Tesla.
That's right. Yes, it's made by Faraday Future.
Oh, no.
Because it's
Trust
about
me,
all they could make.
If anything will stop working,
So
it's
that's
Faraday
that's
Future.
like a car covered in stage brush. Is that what that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of a metallic clear bra.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Hey, let's see. I'm trying to think who's
I'm up.
You're up. Thank you.
I've got a Nissan has, and I'm going to share this. Nissan has put out a teaser. We all love teasers of what they're going to reveal at the Tokyo Motor Show a few days from now on October the 25th. This outline of anything, and they're not giving away much from this, but this is all that we have. This outline is the fabled, long-awaited SUV or CUV that's 100% electric, is what speculators are saying this is. So this is like the beefed up Leaf, a little taller, a little wider, and going to have 100% electric battery for power. So the SUV for the EV world that many manufacturers have not done, and we don't know why, because SUVs sell like hotcakes here in North America. Nissan may be able to get to the gate first. Now, they do say that this car would be released in 2019 season, not the 2018. So I don't know how they know this without maybe some insiders are what's giving this information away. But man, whoever gets there first is going to sell a boatload of these cars, because people are dying to get an SUV or CUV, and that's all they want to buy. And having an EV with that footprint is going to be advantageous to whatever manufacturer can get there first.
Toyota sold a few RAV EVs, but then they stopped.
And then they stopped
it.
Yeah.
So and people who bought them love those cars. They're
cars. Right.
Yes, and that's one of the manufacturers that didn't quite get it. Like, they had the ability to do it. They built a few. Hell, they even had Tesla help them by build the battery part of it. What could have Toyota done if they had kept on the development cycle of that vehicle? They would have sold a ton of them, but they stopped. They were only going after the ZEV credit.
And that's compliance. It. Yeah.
So that's all they were after. And as soon as that was done, they mothballed it, and that was the end.
I would like to think that if this is coming out in 2019, then Nissan was watching Toyota, saw them exit the market, and said, "Yeah, we're going in there."
Yeah, and that's that. Hopefully, is what it is about.
And the cool thing about making a different body on a platform like an electric car is you just basically slap a new body on the chassis. The battery, the motor, all that stuff is probably the same. Maybe stretch it a few inches this way, a few inches this way, and a bit higher. But it's not like engineering a whole new car.
You can probably do it faster with that skateboard. Skateboard platform. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm anxious to see what this is. Yeah, the 25th is 7 days.
So the 25th, it will be unveiled. So we look forward. That's only it's only a week.
And is the blue lighting going to be?
The blue lighting is optional.
Model?
Yes, it's optional.
God. Come on, can we talk about that weird white glow? What if the photons didn't have a chance to escape?
It's moving at the speed of light, which means the headlights don't fully illuminate.
Well, that's another thing. The Leaf, as
you can't see them; they're moving so fast.
Right.
The Leaf, as you know, had a cousin, and that was that van, the NE2000.
Yeah.
And that van was never released in North America, only in Europe and in Asia. But man, wouldn't people be clamoring for a little van that could haul some cargo around, be a delivery service, whatever, with a EV battery pack?
urban delivery stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what you see from Nissan and Chevy today that share a platform, that little van that they have out there, it's the same size. But now you've got a vehicle that would burn zero fuel. And for those delivery urban type scenarios, I think would be a perfect solution. So maybe they will come out with both.
Well, how many times have we talked about the plug-in Chrysler Pacifica minivan?
Yeah.
The ability for soccer moms and just parents in general sitting outside waiting for their kids. I mean, they're just sitting there idling, and there's dozens of them. And this would be the perfect car. Charge it up overnight, run the kids to school, maybe top it off during the day. You pick them up, you run around, you do some errands. Not only are you not burning gasoline, and you're paying pennies per mile instead of dollars per trip. Yeah.
No, I will also mention that as we get closer to auto show season, as we approach the end of the year, I know that GM's they say they're going to introduce 2 vehicles in 2018. So guess what? They're going to be introduced either at the California show or the Detroit Auto Show. So we've got 2 vehicles. Most likely, there's probably going to be a Bolt a platform like the Buick may come out, and that will maybe be some sort of CUV as well. So there are a couple groups that are getting ready. We'll be interested to see who gets to the finish line first.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good time if you like cool advanced tech cars. I've said that for years. That's the fun. No, I mean, seriously.
And just getting better.
Right.
Well, and by the time your number comes up on the Model 3 waiting list, there might be lots of options.
Well, and yeah, right. I mean, the competition never stops. You know what I mean? The clock's always ticking. You don't get to develop a product in a static vacuum. It's just not the way it works.
And speaking of cars that may appear, our favorite punching bag, the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid, might be coming to this country next year. Just like last year and the year before. But interestingly, this article here from Inside EVs is actually saying this is kind of like Mitsubishi's last chance to stay in business in North America. It goes on to talk about how their average dealer sells 22 cars a month, which is up from 10 cars a month 6 years. So imagine a dealership selling 10 cars a month. Like,
dude, they just have like one sales rep. I mean, you couldn't possibly afford
to pay your overhead. I mean, luckily they probably make a lot of money on the service department fixing these 10 cars a month. But you know, it's a car that I'm pretty confident. I think most panelists here are pretty confident it would sell very well if it was available for sale, and if they can educate the dealers to properly represent it. Maybe they need to hire the gentleman from Texas to go work at the Mitsubishi dealer we had on a couple weeks ago.
Right.
But you know, let's pray for Mitsubishi. But if they can't make this work, they may not be here. Because what other cars do they have, really? Has anybody seen a Mitsubishi car on the road lately?
And that would be a no.
Right.
95 Eclipse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if Mitsubishi is watching, the person you're looking for is Buzz Smith. And he's out of Plano, Texas. So contact him.
Offer him a big sack of money to come work for you and your dealers.
Plano,
get the damn cars into the country and try and sell them.
Don't we happen to know? Wasn't there a car company that moved their headquarters somewhere near Plano?
I'm staying out of that.
Okay.
No, not the one that I'm aware of, Tony.
Okay. All right. Didn't think so. Next story.
Paul, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, just one other quote on the article, and we'll have the link in the show notes. And I totally agree with this. It says, a plug-in hybrid buyer is a buyer who takes a lot more time researching cars on the internet. We think it's very important that when they walk into the dealership, there's someone who can intelligently talk about the vehicle. And you're damn right. If you walk into the dealer and there's an idiot salesperson there, you are going to walk right out the door. And someone recognizes this, whether or not they can get that down to the dealer level. You know, I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, that's our news for this week. Thanks, guys. Everybody in the chat room. Let's do some shout outs and go home. Can I start with you, Mark Coughlin?
You can. And just want to give a shout out to the Waterloo Region Voltec Group and Waterloo Region EVA. We've got a show coming up in Guelph on that'd be the 27th and 28th of October, and we also have one coming up in Cambridge on next Tuesday, the 24th. So
Cambridge, Mass.
Cambridge, Mass. No, Cambridge, Ontario. we don't spread out that far, but what can you do? What can you do? And one last thing, as Russell knows me as, we've got the old Tesla parking lot Instagram account has come back from the dead. So anyone that's interested in seeing some wonderfully parked Tesla employee vehicles, it is now available on Instagram under Tesla Parking Lot. And I'll just share one of these wonderful little nuggets where someone has decided to park in the middle of the median for whatever reason.
God.
But it's an interesting flip through if you have a chance.
Front wheel drive car. How are you going to get that out?
Wow.
I didn't think of that, but I do get to work on time.
There you go.
Yeah. Mr. Kuzik.
As always, I will plug Boulder Hybrids, our little repair shop here in Boulder, Colorado that works on hybrids and EVs. And I'm also going to give a shout out to the New Jersey and Connecticut Toyota dealers who are selling Prius Prime still at $3,000 to $3,500 below list. And many of our Colorado listeners are purchasing them from those states. So thank you, New Jersey and Connecticut.
Thank you, Toyota, for not shipping the Prime to every state in the union.
Yes, only to where you can get emissions credits.
Yeah, for no good damn. Just.
Oh, they've got a good reason.
Yeah, well.
It just doesn't benefit the consumer.
Yeah.
Nobody wants them.
Yeah, nobody wants those things except the people willing to drive halfway across the country to get them.
And our website is boulderhc.com for any of you guys or gals in the Mountain States regions.
Absolutely. And not only can you visit Paul, but you can visit Green Eyed Motors too, which is a really cool advanced tech car dealership right next door, Paul, right?
Yeah, they're actually on the same property as us, just 500 feet away, and they sell probably more used EVs than any car dealer in America.
Yeah, very cool little company. I follow them on Facebook, so I like them. I wish I lived in Colorado so I could, take advantage of them and that.
We're still letting some people in, so we
It-
haven't shut all the doors.
Yeah. Send your applications to Boulder HC.
Only way I can get my electric motorcycle affordably is to be a Colorado citizen.
Is it true that we can pay you in beer?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, the legal currency of Colorado is weed, apparently.
We can't say Colorado on the show without saying.
But it's in many other states now, so I guess.
Yeah, that's true. You're not special anymore, Paul.
Aha.
Well, speaking of special, Tony, take it away.
Well, I do want to give a shout out to everyone in our chat room tonight. I know I'm going to forget people, but I know Lee and Eric and JT and Eric and Eric's chatty tonight. Jeez, Eric. No,
I know.
just
Like crazy.
just give you some crap because you're here, right? I also want to make sure everybody knows that you can subscribe to the show on Stitcher and Slacker, YouTube, Google Play, and iTunes. Subscribe to them all. Why not? And if you do subscribe on YouTube, which is youtube.com/whatdrivesus, then you will get a notification when we start recording, and then you can join the chat room yourself.
There you go. And in the meantime, facebook.com/whatdrivesus is a fantastic place to go to interact with us there, post questions, comment on our news articles. Some of the news articles we talk about here, I just grab off of Facebook, and definitely true this week. So facebook.com/whatdrivesus, Twitter, of course, @whatdrivesus, and guess what our YouTube page is? Anybody? No.
What drives us?
YouTube / something.
YouTube.com/whatdrivesus.
How does that work that way? How does that happen?
I know, it's weird. Go there, watch the show, subscribe.
You can actually just listen to the shows on YouTube. You don't have to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And do subscribe though, so you get notified. And do check out some of the car reviews. Okay, please, thank you.
All right.
And just a special note, and I'm probably going to get some crap for this. Okay. But
sweet.
I've got 2 reviews that have given me more negative feedback than every other thing I've ever done on YouTube.
Wow.
Combined.
Wow.
Okay. 2 reviews. And they have one thing in common. They're both Kia products. And in both reviews, I am mildly critical, but they are both overall positive reviews. In fact, one's called A Good First Step. Okay, that's the title of the review. But I'm getting like people on there just like calling me names and saying I'm a lying, vitriolic, heinous asshole. And I mean, it just goes on and on. Like, I don't know what I stepped in with Kia, but
if you're reviewing them as someone who's driven Toyotas or Hondas forever, there's a difference. Now, if you only drove Kias forever, you wouldn't have that same opinion.
Yeah, and I think that's my point. I'm not going to plead my case here other than to say, you know what, I try and say something good and I try and be honestly critical. And if you think I'm a lying scumbag, fine, I'm cool with that. If you're going to take the time to comment on the YouTube page, frankly, I'm flattered you took that much time.
Oh, there is that. Yeah.
And honestly, if you think you're the first person who's ever called me an asshole,
get in line.
Yeah, get in line. Okay.
Because that's the entire 5 minutes before the show goes on the air.
Yeah, pretty much like, hey, what's so anyway, but cheers to all of them. You know what? I don't hate Kia. And I hope that Kia says, hey, you know what? Somebody feels this way about our product. They care enough to say something and to make a video. And maybe we should think about that. Because why not be better than your competitors?
And you know what? If you look at Kia's quality level, it's going up exponentially in the last 10 years from what it used to be.
There's no doubt about it.
Right,
So,
yeah.
you know, maybe some people think they're not at the same level as other companies today, but if they keep that same trajectory, it ain't going to be long. So,
Right. And I look forward to reviewing an amazing, awesome Kia car. That would just, I mean, I love that. I love getting in a car that blows me away. That's exciting. What makes me sad is getting in a car that's kind of mediocre and doesn't really have a lot going for it. And then
too much plasticky crap.
Yeah. I just get sad because again, I'm not here to I'm not the guy who's like, everyone at Kia should be executed. These cars are horrible. No. That's not what this show's about.
That's next week's episode.
That's next episode. Right. Thank you for the title is Everyone at Kia Should Be Executed.
I mean, Tesla just, lets them go. I think that's
the last Kia I'm ever going to have a chance to review.
And there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Yeah, exactly. Try that one. Well, we're testing it every week on this show.
Because we have a lot of automotive corporate sponsors.
Yeah.
A lot.
By a lot of, you mean...
Yeah.
Good one, Paul. Hey, my thanks to Paul Guzik, Tony Schaefer, and Mark Coughlin for taking the time to come on the show and chat up with me. One of my favorite topics. My thanks to all of you for watching and or listening. All of you in the chat room, thank you. Come on Facebook, go to YouTube, visit us, subscribe. Come on, just drop us a like or something. Thanks very much. As always, thanks to Michael Mannering for our theme music. That's it for this week. Tune in next week and find out what drives us. Hasta.
Peace.